Hello, fellow late night lurkers. I'm Old Dad Guy. I tell scary stories so you can question every sound in your house at 2 a.m. You're welcome. No turning back now. Ever wondered what truly lurks beyond the glare of your headlights on a deserted highway? Well, tonight, we're taking you on a journey where the GPS goes dark and the only navigation is pure, unadulterated fear. These are the terrifying tales of road trips gone wrong, encounters that will make you rethink your next late night drive. Buckle up. I've never been much of a believer in ghosts. That's not to say I don't get spooked. I do, but when it comes to the idea of lingering spirits, I've always figured it was just our imaginations. An old fear hardwired into us from sitting around too many campfires or watching too many movies. But that changed 2 years ago when I took a road trip through the hills of southeastern Kentucky. I was just trying to get away from things. I had a few days off work, a full tank of gas, and no destination. I threw my duffel in the back seat, loaded up some old rock CDs, and figured I'd just drive until something felt right. I've always liked back roads. They make you feel like you're discovering the country all over again, like you're slipping through the cracks of time. The GPS was mostly off. I preferred paper maps anyway. I kept weaving south and east through narrow mountain roads, each turn taking me deeper into places where cell service gave up and the road signs were riddled with bullet holes. On the second day, I found myself somewhere between Harland and Pine Mountain. It was getting late, the light dimming behind the hills, when I saw a crooked old sign, Muddy Fork, 7 miles. It looked like it hadn't been painted in decades, just flaking white letters on a rusted metal plate. Something about it stuck out to me. I turned. The road narrowed almost immediately. Pavement turned to patched gravel and then to dirt. Trees leaned in close, their tops laced together overhead, filtering out what little sunlight remained. It felt like driving into the throat of something. I kept going, partly out of curiosity, partly out of stubbornness. The air turned cooler. I rolled the windows down and noticed the silence. No bugs, no birds, just the hum of my engine. I should have turned around when I hit the first bridge. It wasn't much to look at, just a one-lane iron truss bridge stretching over a slow, dark stream. The wood planks beneath my tires creaked and popped as I rode across, and I noticed the name painted in faded black on the metal frame. Muddy Fork Bridge, built 1912. I eased over it slow, the kind of slow that makes your skin crawl for no good reason. On the other side, the road dipped and twisted around a blind bend. I figured the whole town must have been long dead. There was no one around, no lights, no signs of life. And that's when I saw her. She was standing just beyond the bend, right off the road, in a thin clearing between two trees. A girl, maybe late teens, maybe early 20s, wearing a pale dress that fluttered slightly even though there was no breeze. I hit the brakes so hard the tires skidded in the dirt. She didn't flinch though, didn't run, just stood there. At first, I thought she might be in trouble, maybe wrecked or lost. I opened my door and called out, "Hey!" You okay?" No answer. I got out, leaving the engine running. The crunch of my boots on the gravel sounded loud in the quiet. As I stepped closer, I noticed how pale she was, almost blue-white, like she hadn't seen the sun in years. "Do you need help?" I asked. That's when she turned and walked. No, glided back into the trees. I don't know what made me follow her. Instinct, maybe, or stupidity, or the part of me that still thought this was just a weird local encounter. But when I pushed through those trees into the clearing, she was gone. There was nothing there. No trail, no footprints, just woods, quiet and thick. I backed out slowly, scanning the trees, and got back into my car. When I looked at my phone, it was dead. Not out of battery, just dead. Wouldn't turn on, wouldn't respond to a charger. That never happened before. So, I turned around. Figured I'd head back over the bridge and find a motel somewhere. But the bridge was gone. I mean, gone. Where there had been an iron truss and wooden planks, there was now only the slow-moving water of Muddy Fork. No road, no trace, just bank on either side. I blinked and rubbed my eyes a few times. I knew I'd crossed it. I remembered the sound of the wood creaking under my tires. I remembered the sign. But now, nothing. And then I heard it. A splash, followed by the sound of something crawling up on the opposite bank. It wasn't an animal. Animals don't move that way. Whatever it was slow, dragging itself, wet and heavy. I threw the car into reverse and backed up until I hit a fallen log. I never saw what climbed out of that water. I wasn't waiting to. I spun the wheel and drove blindly down the road, trying to find another way out. But the road kept folding back in on itself. Loops, dead ends, intersections that didn't make sense. At one point, I passed the same tree 3 times. I only knew because the carvings on the bark. MF 1913. It felt like I'd driven into a trap. And then I saw her again. This time, she was standing in the middle of the road. I slammed on the brakes and stopped just feet away. Her head was tilted, her mouth open slightly, like she was trying to say something. I cracked the window. That's when she whispered, "It wasn't my fault," and vanished. Eventually, I found myself back at the original road, like the spell broke. The bridge was there again. I crossed it without looking back, and this time, I didn't slow down until I was back on the main highway. I drove through the night, didn't stop until I hit a diner somewhere in Virginia the next morning. My phone turned on again like nothing had happened. Battery at 82%. I tried searching for Muddy Fork, Kentucky. Nothing official came up. Just a few obscure message boards, paranormal forums with pixelated photos and secondhand stories. One post caught my eye, though. Someone wrote, "If you see the girl at Muddy Fork Bridge, don't stop, don't speak, don't follow. You'll lose your way, and you might not come back." I didn't reply. I didn't bookmark it, but I haven't forgotten it either. I don't go off map anymore. There's a stretch of road in southern Indiana that I'll never drive again. It runs between old farmland and creeping woods just north of the Ohio River, near a spot called Lick Creek. The name alone sounds unsettling, like something out of a forgotten folk tale. But what happened to me there one night wasn't something I'd ever laugh off. I was headed back from a weekend visiting a friend in Louisville. It was close to midnight. I was trying to shortcut my way through Bloomington using Backroads. GPS had me bouncing between gravel lanes and patchy two-way blacktop, and I was too tired to question it. My tank was half full, music low, and I hadn't seen another set of headlights in almost an hour. Then I came around a wide bend, and there he was. A man standing right at the edge of the road. I swerved instinctively, tires bumping the shoulder as I passed him. I caught just a glimpse. Tall, thin, wearing an old army jacket and jeans, long hair tied back. He didn't move, didn't even flinch, just stood there with one thumb out. It should have been unsettling, but I told myself he probably broke down somewhere, maybe a flat tire and no cell service. I drove another quarter mile before the guilt kicked in. I turned around. I shouldn't have. When I came back around the bend, he was gone. No sign of him. No car, no flashlight, just the woods and the moonlight. I slowed, scanned the trees, then pulled off and got out. The gravel crunched underfoot. I called out, something dumb like, "Hey man, you need help?" But the woods answered with nothing. It was dead silent, not a single chirp or rustle in the woods. Then I heard it. Footsteps behind me. I spun quickly. Nobody. The footsteps stopped too. That's when the hairs on my neck stood up. I backed up toward the car slowly, one step at a time. I wasn't about to run. Not yet. But I wasn't sticking around either. I got in, locked the doors, and turned the car around. That's when I saw him in my rear view. He was just standing there in the road again. Same place, same pose. But something was different this time. His eyes were wide. Way too wide. And his smile, it didn't belong on a normal person. It stretched way too far. I floored it, and I didn't look back. Didn't stop until I was 3 towns over. The next morning, I did what anyone might. I Googled Lick Creek hitchhiker. Thought maybe I wasn't the only one. Turns out, I wasn't. There are threads on message boards going back years. Stories from truckers, campers, local teenagers. All of them mention a man on the road. Sometimes he talks. Sometimes he screams. Sometimes he tries the door handle while you're parked. Says things that don't make sense. Names. Dates. The phrase, "You weren't supposed to turn around." Some say he's a ghost. Others say he's real. But no one who's seen him ever goes back. And neither will I. Back in 2019, I was driving cross country from Virginia to Colorado after a job fell through. I didn't have much money left, so I was sleeping in the car or stopping at the cheapest motels I could find. Somewhere in the middle of Missouri, just west of Rolla, I pulled off onto a nameless exit. One of those places with no gas station, no fast food, just a single flickering sign that said motel, vacancy. I was too tired to question it. The place looked frozen in time, maybe 1960s at best. Pale green siding, a neon office sign that buzzed like an angry wasp, and a row of doors with sun faded numbers. There were no other cars in the lot. The guy at the desk looked just as aged, thin, wiry hair, oversized glasses, and a cardigan, even though it was 80 degrees out. He didn't say much, just handed me a metal key with a tag that said, Room 6. He didn't ask for ID either. Didn't ask for a credit card. I should have walked out. The room wasn't much. One bed, one lamp, floral curtains, and a smell like someone had smoked in there for 50 years and then tried to cover it up with cheap cologne. But I didn't care. I was asleep within minutes. I woke up at exactly 3:14 a.m. Exactly. Not because of a noise, not because of a dream. I just woke up, like something triggered it. And I wasn't alone. I didn't see anyone, but the feeling was undeniable. That pressure in the air, that heaviness. I stayed still, eyes on the ceiling, barely breathing. And then I heard the floor creak, right by the bathroom. Soft footsteps. One, two, then stop. I didn't move. Then I heard whispering. Not words, just a soft, constant murmur, like someone muttering to themselves. I sat up, flipped on the lamp, and the room was empty. The bathroom door was wide open. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, I went to the office to check out. The same old man was there. You said room 6, he asked. I nodded. He just looked at me for a long second and said, You sure? What do you mean? I asked. He didn't answer, just slid the key off the counter and dropped it in a box labeled unreturned. I got in my car and drove. When I finally stopped at a diner an hour later, I tried to look the place up. No results. Nothing under motels near that exit. No trace of it on maps or Google. Even satellite view showed nothing but trees. I asked the waitress if she'd heard of it. She looked at me real slow and said, Honey, there hasn't been a motel out that way in decades. It burned down. The whole thing went up one night in the 80s. I asked if anyone died. She said, One guest, room 6, never checked out. I don't stop at roadside motels anymore. And if you ever find one that doesn't ask for ID, probably just keep driving. I was heading north through rural Pennsylvania last fall, Route 12, somewhere between Reading and the New York border. Leaves were peaking, the hills were painted red and gold, and I had no reason to rush. I'd booked a small cabin up by World's End State Park, and I was giving myself time to stop at old diners, antique shops, whatever caught my eye, really. Somewhere near a forgotten town called Eagle Rock, I took a detour. I saw a hand painted sign on a wooden post that said, Fresh cider and pie, open, with an arrow pointing left. I followed it, obviously. The side road was narrow, badly paved, and lined with trees close enough to scratch the mirrors. I drove for about 5 minutes before the woods opened to a clearing, and there it was. A little white farmhouse with green shutters, a wraparound porch, and an old swing swaying gently in the breeze. A sign by the gravel drive read, Homestead Orchard. There were apples in baskets on the porch and what looked like steam rising from the chimney. It felt perfect. I parked, got out, and stepped onto the porch. Before I could knock, the door creaked open. A woman in her 60s stood there, gray hair in a bun, floral apron, hands dusted with flour. Just in time, she said, smiling warmly. Pie's coming out of the oven. I won't lie, it smelled amazing. She invited me in without hesitation. I followed. The inside of the house was like stepping back 100 years. Cast iron stove, wooden table, ticking wall clock. She poured me cider from a ceramic jug and handed me a slice of pie that might have been the best I'd ever had. We talked a bit, nothing deep. I told her I was headed to World's End, and she smiled and said she hadn't been up that way in a good long while. When I asked about pain, she waved it off. Just sign the book, she said, motioning to a guest book on a small side table. I opened it. The names were old. Like, really old. Yellowed pages, ink that looked faded from fountain pens. No dates after 1964. Before I could say anything, I heard the creak of the front porch again. Only this time, no one had walked on it. I turned. The door was shut. The woman was gone. The chair across from mine was empty. And the pie, the cider, even the smell, all gone. I stood up fast, confused, and walked to the door. When I opened it, the clearing was empty. No house, no porch, no car, just trees. I was standing in the middle of a forest. My boots sank lightly into the leaf litter. The air was cold and smelled of moss and rot. I spun in a full circle. No road, no driveway, nothing. I panicked. I ran, stumbling through brush, calling out, trying to find the road again. After maybe 10 minutes of running and shouting, I came back out onto the pavement of Route 12. Feet muddy, chest heaving. My car was parked on the shoulder, all the doors locked, keys still in the ignition. I don't know how I got there. I don't know how long I was gone. But when I looked at my watch, it was 2 hours later. I tried for weeks to find anything about Homestead Orchard. Asked locals, searched maps, even dug through old land records online. Closest I found was a fire back in 1965. A house outside Eagle Rock caught fire during the harvest season. Woman inside died baking pies. No survivors. They say her orchard rotted the next year. I don't stop for pie anymore. This one's different. It's not a ghost story. It's worse. Back in 2021, I was driving through rural Mississippi, somewhere between Natchez and Brookhaven. I'd been on the road all day and needed to fill up before nightfall. My GPS showed a gas station a few miles off the main highway, so I took the exit. The road was quiet. No lights, no cars, just me and the sound of gravel pinging under the frame. Eventually, I saw the glow of a fluorescent sign. It just said gas, half the letters flickering, and a single pump sat out front under a rusted canopy. The store was small, windows fogged with grime, but it was open. I pulled in and got out. The pump was old. No card reader, no screen, just a handle and a little flip meter. I went inside to pay. The place was silent. Shelves half stocked, a cooler humming in the back. One of those dangling fly strips hung near the counter, crusted with dead insects. The man behind the counter didn't say a word. He was tall, thin, skin like paper. His eyes didn't match. One was clouded like it had been damaged. He stared at me like he was trying to remember my face from a dream. I said, 21 on pump 1. He just nodded, didn't bring anything up, didn't ask for payment. I stood there awkwardly. You don't take cash? I asked. Still nothing. Then he leaned forward, slow and stiff, and said, Don't linger. I blinked. Sorry? He said it again, firmer this time. Don't linger. I didn't argue. I backed out of the store, pumped my gas as quickly as I could, and got in the car. When I looked back at the building, he was still watching me through the fogged glass, unblinking. I pulled out fast, didn't even put my wallet back in my pocket. I drove maybe a half mile before I passed a county sheriff's cruiser parked off the road. Figuring I should at least say something, maybe the guy was off or in trouble, I pulled up beside the cruiser. But it was empty. No one in the front seat. Driver's door cracked open. Radio hissing static. And then I saw something that chilled me. On the passenger seat was a receipt. It said, $20, pump 1, dated that same day, same time. My name was printed on it. I didn't pay. I didn't tell anyone. I drove straight through the night until I hit Jackson. I looked it up later. Couldn't find the gas station. No address. No business listed under that name in the area. But one article did come up. A headline from 1992. Sheriff's deputy disappears after welfare check at isolated gas station. Last radio call, don't linger. I don't take back roads in Mississippi anymore. Probably sound advice. Last summer, I was driving home from a camping trip in the Smokies. I'd taken a detour through Tennessee backroads to avoid some traffic near Knoxville. It was late afternoon, sky darkening with a storm, and I figured I'd push through another hour before calling it a day. That's when I saw the car. It was a rust-colored Chevy Impala, maybe 80s era, crumpled nose first into a ditch just off a winding turn. Hood popped, steam rising. No one around, no hazard lights. I slowed down instinctively, pulled over about 20 feet ahead, and put my flashers on. I got out to check if anyone needed help. It was silent, eerily so. The storm was still a few miles off, but the air felt heavy, thick, like the kind that makes your ears ring. I walked toward the Impala, calling out, "Hello? Anyone hurt?" No answer. I reached the driver's side. The door was open. The interior was empty, but the dome light was on, and a purse sat on the passenger seat. That's when I heard it, a shuffling sound, just beyond the ditch. It wasn't footsteps, more like dragging. I turned and looked across the road. Tall grass swayed unnaturally, even though there was no wind. And then something stood up. It looked like a person at first, skinny, unnaturally tall, pale skin stretched over long limbs. No clothes, no visible eyes, just folds of flesh where a face should be. I froze. It didn't move, didn't charge, just watched me. Or I think it did. Then it crouched, almost spider like, and crawled back into the grass without a sound. I didn't go back to the car. I ran to mine, slammed the door, and hit the gas. In the rearview mirror, I saw the Impala vanish. Not figuratively, it literally wasn't there anymore. No wreck, no steam, no trace or tire marks or damage to the ditch. Nothing. Just an empty roadside. When I finally stopped, hours later at a gas station, I looked up Impala crash near Sevier County. Nothing came up, but I did find a post on a paranormal forum, someone describing a nearly identical experience 5 years earlier. Same road, same Impala, same thing in the grass. One reply simply said, "It shows you what you'll stop for." I don't stop anymore. Gravel Ridge Road isn't on most maps. It's a winding one-lane back road in northern Alabama, somewhere between Scottsboro and the Tennessee line. Locals avoid it, especially at night. When I stopped at a bait shop nearby and asked for directions, the old guy behind the counter said, "You don't want to go up that way. Nothing good ever comes down." I thought he was being dramatic. I should have listened. I took Gravel Ridge near dusk, thinking it'd cut 20 minutes off my route. It was paved once, probably decades ago, but now it's mostly rock and dirt, with trees crowding both sides like they're trying to shut it out. No lights, no markers, just woods and more woods. A couple miles in, I saw her. She was standing on the side of the road, facing away. Long black hair, plain gray dress, barefoot. I slowed down, rolled my window halfway. "Ma'am, you okay?" She didn't turn. I pulled to the side and got out. Something about the way she stood, so still, almost too still, sent a chill through me. I took a cautious step forward. That's when she moved. Not turned, moved. She slid sideways. No steps, no bounce. Like a film skipping a frame. She crossed the road in one smooth motion and disappeared into the trees. I stood frozen. Then I heard a voice behind me. You followed her. I spun around. A man stood maybe 10 feet away. Just there. No sound, no approach. He wore overalls, mud-caked boots, and a wide-brimmed hat. His face was shadowed. What? I asked, backing up. She walks that road, picks one driver every night. I tried to form words, but he stepped forward. You shouldn't have stopped, he said. But maybe you'll be lucky. I didn't wait for anything else. I bolted to my car, slammed the door, and took off. Didn't look back, didn't slow down. But Gravel Ridge doesn't let go easy. The road kept going, longer than it should have. No intersections, no cell service, trees too dense to break through. My gaslight came on and I hadn't seen a single house or turnoff in nearly 40 minutes. Just as panic started setting in, the road spit me out near a highway like nothing had happened. When I checked the GPS, it didn't show the road at all. And later, when I tried to tell someone about it, I realized something. My voice recorder, running the whole drive from my travel blog, had captured everything except her. My voice, the car, the wind. But when I ask, ma'am, you okay? There's no silence. There's laughing. High-pitched. Ragged. Wrong. I deleted that file. And I don't take shortcuts anymore. West Virginia has more back roads than it knows what to do with. I was driving through the southern edge of the state on a rainy evening, trying to avoid a wreck on the interstate, when my GPS rerouted me through a long, winding road called Cowan Hollow Lane. It felt like a name from a ghost story. The pavement eventually gave way to gravel, the kind that rattles your frame and forces you to slow down. The rain had tapered off into a mist, but the woods pressed close and heavy. That's when I saw it. A small white church on the side of the road. One room, sloped roof, bell tower with no bell. But no cross. Not on the building, not on the sign. Just the words, The Church of the New Light, painted in uneven black letters across the door. I should have driven past, but my gaslight had just blinked on, and I figured there might be someone inside who could point me toward the nearest station. I pulled in. The lot was grass and mud. My tires sank slightly as I stepped out. The front doors were open just a crack. I knocked. No answer. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. It was warm, strangely warm, like the air had been trapped inside for years. The pews were old, handmade, rough wood, and arranged in a semicircle instead of rows. At the center was a pulpit carved from a single log. Behind it, where you'd expect a cross, was something else. A symbol. Not satanic, not Christian, just wrong. A ring with a vertical line through the middle. It pulsed faintly, like it had been etched with something still warm. I turned to leave and saw them. People. Seated silently in the pews. All of them in black. all of them staring straight ahead. I hadn't heard a sound. No creaking, no breathing. Just there. I backed toward the door, slowly. That's when the woman in the front row turned her head toward me and smiled. It was too wide, too forced, like she was trying to remember how to smile. "You're early," she said. Then the others turned too, one by one, all smiling, all wrong. "You're early," they repeated. I didn't run. I freaking sprinted. Out the door, into the car, tires spinning as I tore out of that mud lot like hell itself was behind me. The road felt longer on the way back, but eventually I found a gas station. I told the attendant I'd just passed a strange church back on Cowan Hollow. He blinked. "There ain't no church on Cowan Hollow," he said. "Not since '83. "What happened?" I asked. He didn't look up from his register. "Fire. Whole congregation inside. Burned down during service. They never found the preacher. I don't stop at churches anymore." I've been driving long haul routes for over 15 years. Seen all kinds of weird stuff on the road. Accidents, wild animals, even a UFO once. Maybe. But there's only one thing I've never been able to explain, and it happened just outside Kansas City. I was eastbound on I-70, headed through the flatlands as night set in. I'd been on the road too long without a break, legs cramping, eyes heavy. I was scanning for any rest area where I could stretch out and maybe take a nap for 30 minutes. Then I saw a sign I didn't remember. "State Welcome Rest Area, 2 miles." It looked official enough. Clean sign, state seal. Even had the little picnic icon. So I pulled off when the next exit came up. The ramp led to a wide, paved loop lined with parking spots, vending machines, even a bathroom building. Fluorescent lights flickered above each space. Looked a little dated, but nothing too strange. I was the only one there. I parked under one of the lights, got out, and headed toward the restroom building. That's when I noticed the quiet. No bugs, no wind. Even the highway noise was gone. Inside the building, it was cooler than expected. The lights buzzed faintly, and the mirrors above the sinks were dusty, slightly warped. When I stepped into the stall and closed the door, I heard it. A voice, very soft, right at my ear. "Stay as long as you want." I spun around. Nobody there. I bolted from the stall and practically dove back toward the truck. But something had changed. The vending machines were cracked, faded. One was toppled. The pavement was full of weeds. The fluorescent lights that had been glowing were all dark. My truck was still there, but it looked older, like it had been sitting for weeks. Dust covered the hood. My windshield was fogged. I jumped in, heart pounding, and started it. Thank God it still turned over, and floored it back into the highway. When I merged onto I-70 again, I glanced in the rear view. No exit ramp, just endless road. Back at a truck stop later that night, I asked a fellow driver if he knew of any rest stop near mile marker 213. He shook his head. Used to be one out there. Got shut down in the 90s. Guy was found dead in the bathroom. Real strange. Whole thing got bulldozed. I checked the satellite maps later. There's nothing there now. Just a break in the tree line where something used to be. Sometimes, late at night, I see that sign again. State Welcome Rest Area, 2 miles. But I don't exit. Not anymore. In the mountains of western North Carolina, there's a sharp bend on an old stretch of Route 209 called Devil's Cure. It's the kind of turn that sneaks up on you, blind, steep, and edged by a guardrail that looks like it's seen better days. Truckers avoid it when they can. Locals say you can hear tires squeal there, even when no cars are around. I didn't know any of that. I was just trying to get from Hot Springs to Asheville without backtracking. It was late. Fog clung low to the road. I was tired, had maybe a quarter tank left, and was planning to pull off at the next sign of civilization. That's when I hit the curve. Out of nowhere, I heard it. A scream. High, human, full of terror. It came from just beyond the guardrail. I slammed the brakes and pulled off, hard in my throat. I grabbed my flashlight from the glove box and stepped out. The air was wrong. Too still. Too quiet. I pointed the light over the side of the road. The drop wasn't steep, maybe 15 feet down into the trees, but there was no sign of anyone, no movement, no car, no blood, just the faint sound of breathing, heavy and wet. Not mine. I swept the flashlight again and caught something. Eyes. Not animal eyes. Human height. Reflective. But they didn't blink. Then they were gone. I turned to get back in the car and found something on the windshield. A handprint. Smeared across the glass. Long fingers. Too long. I drove. Didn't think. Didn't breathe. Just drove. At the gas station 20 miles later, the attendant saw me shaking and asked if I was okay. Devil's Curve, I said. I think I saw... He held up a hand. Don't tell me, he said. You heard the scream. I nodded. He sighed. That curve's cursed. Been that way since the 70s. Car full of teens went over the edge. They say the girl in the back screamed all the way down. I asked if anyone survived. He looked me dead in the eye. No one was ever found. I still had that handprint on the windshield, but when I wiped it with a towel, it didn't smear. It flaked like ash. I avoid mountain roads now, especially the ones with names. I was camping solo in southern Ohio, somewhere near Wayne National Forest. Just off a forgotten Forest Service road the ranger had marked as primitive access only. Perfect for what I wanted: peace, no people, and no light pollution. I set up my tent about 200 yards from the gravel pull off, deep enough in the woods to feel alone, but not far enough to lose track of the car. The first night was uneventful: stars, coyotes in the distance, and the occasional owl hooting. The second night was when it got weird. Around 1 a.m., I woke up suddenly, not from a noise, but from the lack of it. The forest had gone silent. No wind, no insects, no animals, just dead quiet. Then I heard it: a baby crying, faint, muffled, like it was coming through a speaker. It didn't make sense. I was miles from anyone, and it wasn't echoing like it should. It sounded like it was coming from somewhere close, but filtered, like through a baby monitor. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped outside the tent. The sound stopped. The woods were black beyond the edge of my beam. I stood there a long time, waiting, listening. Then I heard a click, like a plastic button being pressed, followed by static, more crying. I turned in a slow circle, trying to find the source, but my mind was racing. Was someone messing with me? Playing a recording? But who? And why? I found no one. I stayed up the rest of the night by the fire, hatchet in hand. At dawn, I packed up fast and hiked back to the car. That's when I saw it. On the hood of my vehicle, carefully placed, right in the center, was a baby monitor. Just the speaker unit. It wasn't there the day before, and it was still on. A soft, static hiss came from the speaker, punctuated by short, wet breaths. Then, clear as day, a voice whispered, "He's awake now." I left everything: tent, gear, cooler, all of it. I just drove. I reported it to the ranger station. The guy behind the desk looked pale when I mentioned the baby monitor. Said there were 3 other incidents like it in the last 5 years, all near the same stretch of forest. They stopped marking that road on public maps after the last one, and I don't camp alone anymore. I was driving north through Arkansas, somewhere along Highway 9, aiming to make it to Mountain View before dark. The sun had already dipped low behind the trees, but I wasn't too worried. Just another hour to go, and the air had that calm before a storm feel to it. That's when I saw the green light. At first, I thought it was a reflection, a shimmer in the trees to my right, pulsing faintly through the woods. But as I kept driving, it grew brighter, steady, unnatural, and clearly coming from deeper in the forest. Then the road split. Left continued along the marked highway. Right led down to a narrow dirt road with no sign. The GPS blinked out. The car's console dimmed, then came back. And that's when I turned. Don't ask me why. I just did. The dirt road wound tight between the trees, ruts deep from years of age and neglect. The light grew stronger, almost like it was leading me. After 10 minutes, the trees opened to a wide clearing. In the center was an old rusted radio tower, maybe 40, 50 feet tall, bent, leaning slightly, but still standing. At its top, a green beacon, flashing slow, steady. I got out of the car. There were no sounds, no wind, just the light pulsing above me. Then I heard it. A voice coming from the base of the tower. Come closer. I spun around. No one there. Again, come closer. It wasn't just a voice. It was in my head. Clear, calm, and completely wrong. I backed up. The air felt charged. Every hair on my body stood on end. Come closer, it said again. We've been waiting. That's when I saw the footprints. Not one set, dozens, all around the base of the tower, leading into the woods, but never out. The green light flared. For a second, I couldn't move, like something held me in place. Then it went dark. No more light, just night. And whatever had been speaking was gone. I ran to the car, tires skidding in the dirt as I tore back to the main road. When I got service again, I tried searching for a tower near Silver Ridge. Nothing. I even asked a guy at a gas station the next morning. He said there was a tower like that back in the 70s, but it collapsed after a lightning strike. Killed a crew of local radio operators who'd been working late. He said the beacon was supposed to be red, but some folks still see green. I haven't, and I don't plan to. If you ever see a green light in the woods, don't follow it. I was taking back roads through Georgia last fall, somewhere southeast of Macon, trying to get to a friend's place without hitting the interstate. I don't mind a little rural exploring, usually means fewer cops and better scenery. That evening, I ended up on a road that didn't seem to have a name. Just a stretch of two-lane blacktop that ran alongside a forgotten railroad line. The tracks were overgrown, rusted, looked like nothing had run on them in decades. That's when I saw the cross. It was hammered into the gravel beside the road. An old, crooked wooden cross with faded white paint. No names, no dates, just the words, "Wait for him." Right beside the cross stood an old man, not walking, not moving, just standing. I slowed down, figuring maybe he needed help. But something about the way he stood, rigid, hands at his sides, face turned slightly down, made me pause. I rolled past slowly, watching him in the rear view. He didn't look up. I kept going for another mile or so, then felt the urge to turn around. It wasn't curiosity, exactly. It felt like pressure, like I had to. So I did. By the time I got back, the man was gone. But the cross was different. Now it read, "He's coming." The paint was fresh. I got out to look. No footprints, no tools, just the same heavy silence. And then I heard the horn, distant, faint, a low, drawn-out train whistle. I looked down the tracks. Nothing. But the horn got louder, closer. I backed away from the cross and got in the car, headlights pointed down the tracks. The horn grew so loud, I covered my ears. And then it stopped. Just silence again. Until my car died. Lights, engine, power, everything off. I sat in darkness. The only sound was my breathing. And then the windows started to fog. Not from the heat or weather. It was warm inside. But the glass began to mist over and across the inside of my windshield. Someone wrote with a fingertip, "You didn't wait." I slammed the ignition. Nothing. Again. Nothing. Then third try. It roared to life. I tore out of there, tires spitting gravel, heart in my throat. Later, I looked up that stretch of track. It had been the site of a wreck in the 40s. Freight train derailed. Dozens injured, a few killed. One of the brakemen was never found. Locals say he walks the rails on certain nights, searching for someone to witness his return. Someone to wait. I didn't. And I definitely won't drive that road again. If you ever find yourself driving through central Nebraska at night, avoid the stretch of Route 83 between Thedford and Stapleton, especially after 2 a.m. I learned the hard way. It was supposed to be a straight through drive. I'd left Colorado Springs late and figured I'd make it to Omaha by morning. I had energy drinks, podcasts, and clear weather. No problem. Around 1:45 a.m., I realized I was lower on gas than I thought. I started scanning for stations. Nothing but dark silhouettes and empty fields. My GPS finally blinked to life and pointed me to a place called Miller's Fill Up. I hadn't seen a sign for it. Still, the GPS said it was just off the next bend. And sure enough, a minute later, I saw a small green glow in the distance. The sign was old school neon, flickering. Miller's Fill Up, open. There were no other lights, no houses. Just one station with two pumps, a little shop, and a dusty old pickup parked beside the building. I pulled in. As soon as I stepped out, I noticed the cold. It hadn't been cold before. The air had a sharpness to it, like winter was pressing in, even though the forecast said mid-60s. The station door opened with a chime. A man behind the counter looked up. Middle-aged, clean shirt, name tag that read Walt. He smiled too wide. "Evening. Pump's ready when you are." I nodded, paid cash for 20, and walked back out. The pump clicked once, then again. And then I noticed something. The pickup truck hadn't moved, but now it was running. I hadn't heard it start. Inside, the cab was dark. Couldn't see anyone behind the wheel. I filled up fast, eyes flicking back to the truck. Then the station door creaked again. Walt was standing there now, but his smile was gone. "Don't look in the windows," he said quietly. "What?" I asked. He stepped out onto the concrete, voice lower. "Just get in and go. Don't look back. Don't look at the glass." I froze. He pointed to my car. "Now." I didn't argue. I got in and drove. Didn't look in my mirrors. Didn't check the windows. I just drove. 5 miles down the road, I finally pulled over, heart racing. Nothing behind me, no lights, no truck, no gas station. I turned around the next morning, broad daylight. No sign of any Miller's fill up. Locals said there used to be a station out that way, burned down in the 90s. Owner died inside. His name was Walt. I never drive past midnight anymore. This happened somewhere in western Oklahoma. I was driving cross country, heading toward the panhandle, using the back roads to make better time and avoid way stations. The land was flat, the sky wide, and I was the only one on the road for what felt like hours. That's what made the first sign stand out. It was simple, a white board with hand painted red letters hammered into the dry ground off the shoulder. It read, "Turn around." I thought it was a joke, some old farmer messing with drivers. I kept going. 10 minutes later, I saw another one. "Turn around now." Same style, same red paint, only this one looked fresher. The paint glistened a little, like it hadn't fully dried. I slowed down, scanned the area. No vehicles, no houses, just fields of waist-high grass and some scattered fence posts. Another mile, another sign. "This is your last chance." That's when I started to get nervous. I tried checking my phone. No signal. The GPS showed my car blinking on a gray road with no name. Still, I drove on. The next sign was different. It wasn't a board. It was carved into a dead tree. "We warned you." I hit the brakes. The road ahead curved into a thin line of trees. Beyond it, nothing but low hills and sky. I backed up, turned the wheel, and that's when I saw it in my mirror. A figure standing behind the last sign I'd passed. Just a black outline, tall, still, watching. I floored it. Didn't care if I missed my turnoff or lost time. I just wanted off that road. The weird part? I looped back toward the state highway and rejoined it about 20 minutes later. But as I merged, I saw one final sign tucked into the bushes at the junction. Some don't get to turn back. To this day, I don't know who put those signs up or how they moved without a vehicle. But I know I wasn't supposed to keep going. And if I had, I don't think I'd be here to tell the story. Now, when I see a weird sign in the middle of nowhere, I listen. Did you hear about the restaurant on the moon? Great food, no atmosphere. OldDadGuy. You thought you were alone, didn't you? But they've been watching the whole time. Like, subscribe, and maybe they'll let you sleep tonight.